Hey y'all, welcome to the Clan Hernandez podcast. There are literally thousands of other things you could be listening to right now, so thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Our hope is that as you hear our conversations and stories, that we can provide some good laughs, encouragement, tips for navigating certain difficulties in life, and possibly even new perspectives on God the Father. We love y'all. Let's jump in. All right. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Clan Hernandez podcast. It's Nate here with my wifey, Brooke. Say what's up, baby.
Hey, guys.
So today we have another heavy hitter for you guys. I told y'all in the last episode we had another one for you. So let's get into it. What are we talking about today, babe?
We're talking about porn in marriage. So,
Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to have some interesting, what? What am I saying? I got a text message, so I just got distracted. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you've dealt with,
Sure.
and how it's affected our marriage, how we've worked through it. And I really think it's important to hear this topic from a woman.
Yes.
A lot of times we hear men talk about it to other men, but I think it's so important that we talk about it. I want to do it from a woman to even a wife.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be good for men to hear it too, but I really want women to hear what I have to say because I'm somebody who's been there and we've walked through it together and we've come out the other side better.
Yeah. But I will also say, like, the way that you've handled the issue, the way that you've kind of walked with me through it, is different than a lot of stories that we've heard from people in our circles and people that are just, that we've heard about. We've heard their testimonies, their stories, that have either sought them through to the end and they got through it together, and ended up in divorce, and so we've seen
lots of stories.
Right.
And you're totally right. I think for me, I would just want to preface with we want grace in this episode.
100%.
We aren't perfect, clearly. And I want people to know maybe how I handled situations. Maybe that's not how everyone's going to handle it.
Right.
But I will say that I tried my hardest in every area to seek the Holy Spirit.
Sure.
And I think that he has given me some good keys and ways to view what you were dealing with, struggles you were dealing with. And so I just want to be able to talk about it.
Yes. This story doesn't always end in victory for people.
Yeah.
A lot of times it does end up in divorce, and that doesn't mean that they did it wrong per se.
Yeah.
Every single person's story has its little intricacies and it has its reasons for why things got where they went. Yeah. And so, like we said, man, there's no judgment here for how things might have gone for you or for someone that our hope in this is to kind of just share, like Brooke was saying, how the Lord walked us through this issue and continues to walk us through the issue.
Yeah.
Because you can't go through this topic in our own power, obviously. And that's not to say that those that ended up in divorce because of this issue weren't walking with the Lord through it. Again, there's so many different intricacies, but I think in our story, in people hearing our story, I think it'll help, at least a few people.
Yeah, definitely.
So go ahead, baby. You can start us off if you like.
I think we should start off by talking a little bit about your story with this. So when did you really get exposed to porn? Mm-hmm. Clear, obviously you were addicted to porn. So let's talk about where this all started.
Yeah. So just like she said, I have struggled with an addiction to the issue since I was, sixth grade, when I was kind of reintroduced to it. But basically my first exposure to it was probably somewhere in third grade. My dad had borrowed my uncle's cable box, back in
Are you
the late
about
90s.
to like blast someone right now?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. The cable boxes back then, like it just had every channel.
Okay,
You know
I'm
what
too
I'm saying?
advanced for this. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what was recorded on there?
No, the cable boxes, it's just like they just had every channel that you
Had
could.
cable. That's all you're trying to say.
Right.
Had
We
cable.
didn't
Got it.
have
You didn't have
cable.
cable. Remember last episode we were talking about how you didn't have the money.
Oh, dude, we just didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have and beyond that, my parents have just always been super old school with tech.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get a
They
cell
didn't
phone.
get internet until after we started dating.
Yeah.
Anyways, that has nothing to do with
wild.
this. So.
I'm like, dude, you guys are behind. But anywho, yeah. So my dad had borrowed my uncle's cable box, and one day, me and my cousins, we came home from school because we used to walk to and from our elementary, and my cousin lived like the neighboring street, so we would just walk home together. And so anyway, we turn on the TV. Browsing through, oh, my dad has got the cable box. We can look at like Nickelodeon or
yeah,
Disney
right?
Channel
That's exactly
or
what I
Cartoon
thought.
Network or whatever. And so we're flipping through, and this is like right after school, daytime, and we flip through and we end up on a porn channel. And it's just the wildest thing that any person would be able to see, like would want to see,
Yeah.
much less
third grader.
a third grader.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember we're like sitting there. It's three of us. It's three of me and my two cousins. And we're just like, just frozen and like, what is this?
Yeah.
What are they doing? You could just imagine like what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're baffled and we're probably watching this thing for a solid minute, like 60 solid seconds of just, and then my older cousin, he walks in and he's like, hey, what are y'all watching? And he comes in and we're like, we freak out. We're, hearts pounding and we're like, well, I don't know. We were just turning the TV on and flipping through the channels, like, fumbling over our words, just like I am right now. And it's like, you're nervous.
Yeah.
And like, because it's
You know
bad.
it's wrong. Yeah.
You don't know why it's wrong, but it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's innate. It's like his word is written in our hearts. It's like we know when something is not right. And you don't have to be taught that. My mom never taught me that at that young of an age that looking at naked ladies is wrong.
You just knew.
Yeah.
Of course. So if that's when you were first exposed, like when did you first become like, it became an addiction obviously it grows over time. So.
Right. And so I never really dealt with the issue. After that, it was something that just as a kid, you just never think about. You think of other kid things, just hanging out with your cousins and friends and games and right. And so we moved from El Paso to a small little town. I've mentioned it before. And it's about 4 hours south of El Paso. It's called Presidio. And so living in Presidio, it's a town. It's like a small little town. Mm-hmm. And there's no McDonald's there. There's no Walmart there. There's no
That's
Target.
a small town if there's no McDonald's.
There ain't no McDonald's. Nothing.
Small town. No Subway? They always have
They
Subways.
got a Subway when I was in high school.
So they were a small town.
Yeah. So no Dairy Queen, nothing. It was pretty wild. I don't think they
All
had
you had
Dairy
was
Queen.
mom's cooking? Oh, man.
Oh,
darn.
what a struggle. My mama can cook, y'all. And she'll cook you up with that word too, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
And so anyway, we're in this small town. I don't really know a lot of people, but I end up making friends with the local skater kids and the little rockers. Because this little town, it was just a bunch of like, it was like a bunch of kids, like Mexicano kids, Mexican kids who, dressed up in like, cowboy hat, nice button-up shirts, really, like nice cowboy jeans and the boots and, like the cowboy, like the Mexican cowboy kind of look, the cinch clothing and all that stuff. And so everybody there was into sports, but also, their culture was just different than the skaters and the little rockers.
Yeah.
And so we didn't dress like them. We didn't act like them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so, especially me, a little city kid. And so I am Mexican, but like not like that, you know what I'm saying? And so, so anyway, we start hanging out with the little rocker kids and they become some of my best friends in the world. And the school had got a grant and the school was able to basically buy laptops for every student.
Yeah.
So you got to go home with these laptops, do homework, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these kids didn't have a lot of money to do that, right? And so the schools would provide it. So anyway, obviously you give a kid a laptop at that age, you know.
How old are you probably at this point?
6th grade. And so I'm 1 year younger than everybody because I was a year ahead.
Nate's a little
my grade.
baby genius, so he skipped a grade.
And so I was in the same grade as students who were basically a year older than me. And so, dude, I'm not like sex stuff is just, it wasn't even on my mind. I had no like
curiosity. Is that the word you're looking for?
Curiosity, but it just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah.
And so then this, you know, the guys are all talking about like, hey, it's like, do you guys watch porn? You know, oh, dude, come check this out, you know, and pulling up, you know, they kind of bypassing the firewall, you know, using proxies and different ways to like get around the lockdown school Wi-Fi, or we'd take it home and they'd have, you know, Wi-Fi there at their house, and you know, and they'd be like, oh, check this out, you know, and showing us, like, we'd all be watching porn together.
Wow.
Those 6th grade boys, you know what I mean? Like, and we're all just like, whoa, dude, what? And then they, you know, along with that, they start talking about like masturbation and have you ever done that? It's like, you know, it feels so good. You should try it out. And dude, I'm a year younger than these guys, but I feel like I'm, you know, finally finding people that are they're like cool kids and they're interested in like skating and rock music and the stuff that I like. Yeah. And, so I'm fitting in, but then there's this thing they're talking about that I just
don't relate to at this point.
I'm like, what? I don't even know what this is. And so obviously I liked it. You know what I mean? It's like you're around that age, you're starting to, you know, come of age, right? And so I'd go home and the images would come right back like, oh, dang, that's right, I could look this up. Yeah. And so I would find like local, like neighboring Wi-Fi, like unlocked Wi-Fi. Yeah. And just, you know, connect to theirs and start just browsing to my satisfaction. And quickly became an addiction, quickly became something that we always talked about. All the guys were always laughing about and sharing your favorite, you know, porn actress, your favorite or porn star, like, you know, different scenes. That was just part of what we did. We shared music, we shared skate videos, and we shared like porn videos, and just that's what we did. Yeah. And we you know, when we'd play games and stuff for typical teenage stuff, including porn. Yeah. And so, especially in a small little town where like you don't really have anything to do per se. Yeah. You know, I remember we even went to like all us little skater kids, like 7th, 8th grade. We all skated to the local city. What do they call it? Where like the mayor's at, the mayor's office. Yeah. City Hall. Yeah. And we like requested to speak with the mayor and like to ask for him to like build a skate park for us, because we didn't have, like, we would skate the local bank. We would skate like just the sidewalks.
You didn't have much to do.
No, like we'd go over to each other's houses, play Xbox, play Halo. And then one guy would be over, like one of the guys is not playing Halo with us. He's over here, you know, pulling up a porn site. Like, that's just what happened.
So it started then at, you said like 5th grade.
6th grade is really when it started. I was a 5th grade age, but.
And it just continued.
Oh yeah.
So then was there ever a point when because you came to the Lord at what, 16, 17?
Like 15, 16, yeah.
Wow, I'm really good at ages today. So you came
I was a sophomore.
Okay, sophomore in high school. So several years of this addiction.
Oh, yeah.
And so you get saved. Do you feel a tug from the Lord to get rid? Like, what do you feel?
1,000%. Yeah. So obviously,
like, do you feel shame about? Like,
Yeah. So
this isn't something I struggled with. Sure. Like, I just don't.
Mm-hmm. And so, we had I hit an age where we went to the youth camp that I talked about in the last podcast, and YFN. And in that moment that we were talking about in the last episode, where the love of the Father just kind of just like, I actually for the very first time felt a tangible God. I felt God's presence, like very, you know, Kim Walker, very so thick and tangible.
Yeah,
Like,
it's true.
like you felt something heavy in the room that you've
Yeah.
never felt before. You feel something within yourself that you've never felt before, and just an overwhelming sense of love. And along with that, I felt the Lord. I literally in my mind saw an image of a slate, just like almost like something that you like serve breakfast in,
Yeah.
right? But like a metal, like silver slate, and I just saw the hand of the Lord or the Holy Spirit just wiping it clean. And he's like, I'm wiping your slate. And not just like of your past mistakes. It was, I'm wiping the slate of your mind and the way that you think. Because at this age, at this point, when I go to this youth camp, I've been struggling with porn addiction, and the way that I just kind of treated relationships with girls, it was all very physical, right? Because it was all, it's fed by lust, right? And if what you're feeding yourself is just a bunch of lust and sexual perversion, that's what you're going to crave in your relationships. And so a lot of my relationships were, you know, they had a lot of sexual aspects. Now I maintained my virginity, partially because I was scared of what my mom, I felt like my mom would just know.
She would have a dream or something, right?
That I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Y'all know how moms are, especially spiritual mamas. They just know.
Yeah.
And so I was always scared that somehow my mom was going to find out, or somehow God was going to end up smiting me while I'm, you know, in the act. And so I was like I said in the last episode, like I wasn't really religious myself per se, but I still believed that there was a God out there.
Yeah.
And that the one that I was taught was he hates sin and he hates sinners. And because I grew up in a Christian house, I was probably going to get smitten because I'm doing the worst thing that a Christian kid could do.
Yeah.
Have the sass. And so.
Yeah. So you didn't.
Did not, right? I maintained my virginity. And so, anywho, came to the Lord, and my porn addiction for an entire year, clear.
Wow.
In a moment, in an instant, things that guys begged the Lord for years and years and years. And I've been on that end of it even after that moment, because I reopened that door later on.
Yeah.
And just begging the Lord, do it again. Like, clear me from, like, wipe my slate clean, Lord. Like, clean my mind up. And the way I even viewed girls just drastically changed overnight. Girls that I used to talk to, girls that I was interested in, girls that I would flirt with, girls that we used to just mess around with. Like, I couldn't even see them in a sexual way. I saw them as daughters of a king who loved them so much and wanted them to know him.
Yeah.
That's what I saw them as. I know, like, literally my entire perspective of sex and all of that just changed overnight. And so for an entire year, I didn't deal with anything sexual and lust wise. Yeah. And, man, it was such a great time of freedom, actually experiencing it. And then I reopened that door one day. It was just a moment of weakness.
Yeah, I was going to say a moment of weakness, I'm sure.
Just a moment of weakness. And I was just like, oh, that's right.
And so then once you opened it, was it not like okay,
the shame
we're
was
done?
No, the shame was wild.
I did it once and I'm never doing that again.
No.
Nope. You were like,
the shame was wild. Obviously you feel a lot of shame. A lot of guys know this, especially in the, guys in the church. The shame of messing up is heavy. Yeah. You're just like, as soon as you're done, you're just like, oh, bro, why did I do that? It's so stupid. Lord, I'm sorry. And it's just the shame cycle.
Yeah.
Of reminding yourself, the Holy Spirit reminding you, no, you're a son. I love you. You're the righteousness of Jesus. Yeah. Just get up, try again, or get up and don't do it again. Yep. And then you do it again. And it's just this like shame cycle, because once it like has a grip on you, it's so hard. No pun intended. It's so difficult to. It's so difficult to overcome that issue.
Yeah, for sure.
I love when Brooke smirks at me.
And it's just telling you,
I love
don't do that. Just kidding.
Don't be yourself, Nate.
Don't be yourself, Nate. Come on, I'm just kidding.
And so, it was a difficult thing because it's that Paul struggle. It's like doing the things that I don't want to do,
Yeah. I know are wrong.
I know are wrong. And it's like,
and I want to do what's right, but I'm doing
my
what's
flesh
wrong.
is, it's like, and the things that I know I should do, I'm not. And and it's a cycle.
Yeah. And it's
it
true.
becomes,
It's such a battle. Like
it is a battle.
It really is.
And I, you know, when I look at my biological father and just the things that I would assume he dealt with, you know, I mean, him and my mom would, you know, they messed around.
Yeah.
However many times they messed around, and
at least once.
Yeah, and on at least the one time,
okay,
and it was successful.
It was very successful.
You know, and my mom, you know, she lapse of judgment, just in her growing in the Lord, you know, had that relationship with Him, and just even father figures in my life, and you know, I know that I've dealt with this issue, and I remember just feeling so alone on this issue because there was a season where I was doing it like 6 times a day at a certain point.
Yeah.
As much as I could. If I was at home, like one of the ways that I would kind of get away from that feeling that we talked about in the last episode of like, you know, if I was home, it wasn't really a happy space. Yeah. One of the ways that it made it a happy space for myself was watching porn or playing games or whatever, you know, and so just getting my mind off of my realities. And so I felt alone in it. And then I realized when I got to Bible school that I was not alone by any means.
Yeah.
I've literally told you this before, and many other friends who have, you know, had this conversation with me. At Bible school, even before Bible school, just of every man that I know, on one hand, I can count the amount of men that I know who've never dealt with a porn struggle.
Yeah.
Whether it be an addiction in a season or whether it be a long-term addiction, to some degree, not dealing with that issue.
Yeah.
Because of the way that it's so accessible to us, the way that it's just so freely like advertised to us.
Well, it's even not it's not even accessible. It's literally just like in your face. You don't even go looking for it, and there it pops up.
I used to not believe my friends whenever they would say,
it's so true.
When they would say like, "Oh, dude, I got off Instagram because, bro, Instagram was like showing me porn." I'd be like, "Bro, Instagram doesn't allow porn. Like they have like algorithms for that. What do you mean?" And I would think that they're just talking about like chicks in bikinis and stuff, and they were labeling that porn. And it's like I don't consider that porn. And like, I'm not saying you can go look at ladies in bikinis. I'm saying like they would see a picture of it come up, and sometimes I would think, "Oh, you're just over exaggerating about what you consider porn." Until I started following like Nature is Wild and like all these like
food accounts, different things.
Just like normal everyday pages, and they're posting porn. Yeah, because of like there's these pages that will pop up that specifically want to feed that. Yeah, and so they'll collaborate with another page that everybody follows, so that
they can
you see the content.
Yeah.
And I remember for the first time like seeing porn on Instagram, and I'm like, dude, I can't freaking escape this. Yeah. What the heck?
Yeah, it's so hard. And I think I'm going to talk about this a little bit, if that's okay.
Oh, please do. No, please do.
So for us,
you don't have to ask me, girl. You're your own woman.
So for Nate and I figured, because I went to the same Bible college as him, and it was talked about quite a bit, you know, people dealing with porn and different stuff. And I like assumed most men probably dealt with it. And so when we got engaged is when we finally talked about if you dealt with porn or how much or whatever.
Well, no, we talked about it while we were dating.
I don't remember dating. I remember specifically we were already engaged. And then I'm sure we probably did.
Agree to disagree.
No, we probably did talk about it. Apparently I loved you so much I didn't remember. So I remember, the first time I remember was when we were engaged. Sure. And we were pulling up to my parents' house and we were talking about it, and you were like, yeah, I struggle with porn. And I remember being like, all right, we're about to get married. This is it. What's going to happen? Like in my head, I was like, he's not going to just stop because we get married. Sure. And
why did you think that? Because it's a pretty common lie that
once you get married, you're not going to struggle with porn anymore. Right. For me, all I could think was, this is an addiction. Like, if this is an addiction, it's not just going to miraculously get cured by I don't know how to have sex body. Like, let's be honest here. I had never had sex. So for me, I was like, we all know I'm not going to cure this. I'm not going to be the end all be all. Like, I'm not. And not in a mean way, but just in a like, I'm a very realistic person. And so for me, I was just like, this isn't going to be it. So I remember in that moment, I was like, all right, we got to start praying, Brooke. You got to stop praying for this man, because he's not going to overcome this just because you're going to give yourself to him when you get married.
Sure.
And so go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, the reason why I remember us talking about it while we were dating was because we would do like fasts from each other.
Mm-hmm.
I know, super Christian.
We're going to talk about that in a later episode.
we would do fasts from each other.
Healthy,
and it had its healthy aspects. I think we overdid it, but it definitely was needed. And so, but I remember during our fasts being like, she's going to leave me because of our conversations. And so I know that we had the conversations while we dated, but I don't know.
I think I didn't feel the weight of it until we were going to get married.
Sure.
Because then I knew that was also going to be something that I was going to have to deal with.
Sure.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the next part, which is about how it affected our marriage.
Sure.
So I knew that you'd struggled with this. And so once we got married, it was a little tough.
Sure.
Sex was, because
like right at the beginning,
because I know I am not a porn star. I am a normal human.
Yeah, but you hot though.
I know you think I'm hot.
Typical youth pastor quote there.
So
my hot wife.
Yeah. So for me, it was, it was a little bit, it was still fun. Like, it was fantastic, but to me, it could have been an opportunity where I just felt so deflated.
Sure.
And I think a lot of women.
You can tell them why.
Why?
Like, why did you feel deflated?
Because I felt like I wasn't what you needed or wanted.
Sure. But the reason why was because my porn addiction was at such a height.
Oh, yeah.
That, let me give you a little bit of a back understanding, kind of a preface to this stuff. Not you, but the person listening, as we've had this conversation 1,000 times. But with porn, it literally it affects your brain in the same way that literal drugs do, and it's the same portion of your brain that addicts kind of go through with their drug addictions. And what's happening is with porn, a lot of times it's not just one video you're watching. It's like a buffet. It's I'm going, that video looks good, new tab. That video looks good, new tab. And so you're opening, 20 tabs, 10 to 20 tabs, and you start watching them, and you just kind of, it's like a buffet.
Yeah.
And so you're going from this look and this kind of video and this kind of position and this kind of this and this and that until you get, to your destination.
Yeah.
And you do that for years and years and years. And what ends up happening is you start training your mind. It literally creates what's called neural pathways.
Yeah.
You're creating neural pathways in your brain that say, in order for you to get here, you need to go through this path here. You need this, and that to get here.
Yeah.
And while my wife wasn't 20 different women, you weren't all of the different things that I have to see.
Trained yourself almost
to get to that point.
Yeah.
So on our wedding night, it was as fun.
It was so fun, but it was
it was deflating to you because I couldn't get there. And
I think for me, it was hard. There's something specific that I remember. We were on our honeymoon, so we went straight from wedding
Sorry.
No,
there was still like the aspect of like nervousness because it's the first time.
Of course.
Like,
yeah.
Obviously, so you pile nerves on top of the fact that like I just couldn't get there. That's an easy way for you to feel deflated. Sorry,
go
ahead.
I will say I didn't feel super deflated. Like I just was like, oh, well, darn. Okay,
sure,
we'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah,
and so
but it hit you later.
It hit me more when we were on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
So we're on the honeymoon. We're on a cruise. It was awesome. And I remember we were a few days into our honeymoon and we were doing the deed. and it was
As you
going
do.
exactly how it had been going. And I remember we stopped, and I was like laying there, and I just felt so vulnerable because I was exposed, right? Literally. And I remember laying there and feeling like hurt, and just like in my head, like, you're not enough. You're never, like, I might cry. You're never going to be enough. Like, there's no way you can be what he has always encountered. And I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, be patient with him. And I remember being like, okay. And it felt like almost like be patient with him long term, but also like in this moment, be patient with him. And so I stayed there in bed. And like a few minutes later, you probably don't even remember, but I remember like it was real quiet. Neither of us talked. And then you just were like, I just want you to know, like, you're enough for me. And in that moment, I was like, it was the affirmation that I needed. And it was kind of from that moment on, I was like, you know what? A lot of times we think men need to take their thoughts captive, but also we as women who have husbands who deal with this, we need to take our thoughts captive. Like, we believe so many lies about ourselves because of what our husbands do. We say, I'm not enough because of what you deal with. I'm not sexy enough, or I'm not, I'm never going to be what he wants me to be, or I'm not pretty enough. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not physically attractive enough. Like, we put ourselves, these labels on ourselves that are lies solely because of what you're dealing with. And we need to take those thoughts captive. Like, I shouldn't be thinking those things about myself because it's not true. And if you stop believing those lies, it's so much easier for you to see clearly, like, the struggle that you're dealing with. It's not so, you're not so offended.
Sure.
And I think because I did that, it was easy for me to not stay offended at you. And it was easier for me to see you almost like through Christ's eyes. And I was burdened and sad that you dealt with such a struggle, as opposed to feeling attacked by you and being like, well, how dare you do that? Which there were moments I felt that way, of course, because it's naturally. Like, man, I stinking saved myself for you. And I was told that it's going to be this amazing, and you saved yourself for me.
Sure.
And you think it's going to be this amazing, like, rendezvous. And I'm literally like, it's not a rendezvous. You know what I mean? Sure. Like, it's just, it wasn't, what everyone had told me it was going to be, or even what I had made it up in my mind.
Sure.
And I had so many opportunities to be so mad at you. But I feel like because I, in those moments, allowed the Holy Spirit to kind of speak to me a little bit. And I think also something that was big is I knew your character. And I knew that you were a man who, like, truly, genuinely loved the Lord. And I knew that you probably didn't want this addiction.
Not at all.
You didn't want to be dealing with this.
I don't know a single, genuine, sincere believer who wants to have that struggle.
Yeah.
Every time we fall, there's this shame battle that we go through. It's like, dude, come on, like, do better.
Yeah.
But it's literally an addiction. And it's hard for a lot of times spouses or
someone who's like, I've never dealt with an addiction in my life.
Sure. Exactly.
And so for me, like, I'm a very disciplined person.
Yeah.
And so for me, my default, outside of the Lord showing me other things, my default is to think people who aren't disciplined are lazy.
Sure.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
And so there were times I felt that about you, like, well, he just doesn't care to stop. And the Holy Spirit would be like, girl, that's my son. I'm just kidding. But, like, I needed to not be thinking those things about you. There's
some truth to that.
There is truth, but I think.
But a lot of times the enemy is. I'm not trying to like.
We're gonna be spiritual. It is.
No. Okay, we're gonna be spiritual. I'm just saying, like, I'm not trying to make, a woman out to be influenced by Satan if she, No, that's not, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is a lot of times, like, the enemy is the accuser of the brethren, and what his job is to remind us of who we're not.
Yeah.
You're not, this believe, this strong believer, or you're not, you're, and he tries to use other people also in our life to accuse.
Yeah.
And it's like he takes partial truths. Like, was I being lazy in my pursuit and trying to stop? I don't know if I was being lazy, but I think I could have tried to put things in place.
More boundaries.
Yeah, I could have been more proactive about having boundaries. And so it's like he takes that
one little thing
and and
blows it up.
lazy, and
He is lazy.
or he's
That's
not,
a label.
he's not trying enough,
Yeah.
he's not trying hard enough or whatever.
Yeah.
Or he's always gonna, like, for me, it was the thing I would always hear was like, you're always gonna struggle with this. You're never gonna overcome it fully. You did it for a year, but that was it. That was your your one like major grace moment.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna happen again. And but yeah, and so that's just like the enemy loves to come in and accuse.
Mm-hmm.
He brings shame. He brings he twists our identity, And so anyway, continue. You were
that's pretty much what I was going to say. Is just, a lot of times we think that you need, as the husband, need to change your mindset. But I think it's also, we need to, as wives, not allow the enemy to speak lies about us solely because of what our husband does.
right.
And the second thing that I would like to say to wives is, or any spouses that deal with it is, or they're a spouse who has a spouse who deals with it.
Sorry, my dog was escaping.
They may not even hurt.
I didn't at you. So anybody might have thought that I was at my wife.
Think about that. Okay, so I did not even think about that.
I'll do it to the dogs sometimes, and Brooke will be like, "Did you just me?" No, I did it to the dogs.
Anyways, rabbit trail. So, I would like to, I think the other thing that I would really just want to make sure that I tell a spouse is, I think a lot of times we think, women who are in the church or, spouses, that it's not out. We feel like people have put it on us, that it's,
Your burden.
that it's our burden to bear. Okay. Hear me out. Again, we're covered in grace in this episode. I would like to say that it is kind of our burden. It is sort of our burden to bear, in that I'm called to pray for you.
Yes.
In that I'm called to lift you up.
Come on.
I'm not supposed to put shame on you. You already have enough shame. That's not mine. Like, I'm not supposed to put that on you. I'm supposed to, my calling as your wife, it doesn't matter what you're struggling with. If you were struggling with alcoholism, I would be on my knees begging for the Lord to allow you to stop drinking alcohol.
Right. We're not talking about a guy going out and cheating and no. We're talking, and we're not talking about abuses. Like,
no.
Get yourselves out of those situations by all means, y'all. Like,
but I don't think anyone thinks that I'm talking about that. Like,
No,
we are
no.
solely talking about porn right now.
Sure, 100%.
And so I think
sometimes people in different situations might conflate, or not conflate, but correlate porn addiction to, well, he was also doing this, and that.
We're solely talking about porn
just talking about, yeah.
All I'm saying is, if your husband was dealing with something else that maybe you'd see as less,
100%.
The reason that porn is tricky is because it's brought into your marriage sexually, and sex is the only thing that should be between you and your husband.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels personal.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It feels so personal as a wife. It feels like an attack on you when it's not. It's literally an attack from the enemy. He doesn't want our marriage to succeed. He doesn't want us to be intimate with each other, because that is something that God has given us. It's a gift that God has given us.
Right.
And when we're intimate with each other, we are more connected. We are more one. And that's part of it.
It's a holy thing in that moment. Like, I know this is weird, but like, dude, the Lord is in that. The Lord is like, it's this thing. It's obviously a beautiful thing that he made. Right. But it's like when we're intimate with each other, like, he's like a part of that process and that experience.
It's holy, yeah.
It's a holy thing. I know people are probably getting weird about it, like imagining God there while we're having sex.
No,
like,
it's a holy thing that
it's
made.
A beautiful thing. It's a holy thing.
And so for me, like, it just really is hard for me when I hear women being like, well, that's not mine. He needs to take care of it himself. And for me, I feel this holy conviction that I feel burdened. I remember there was a time in our marriage which this is something we'll talk about probably in a few minutes, but like, once I knew you were struggling, I could ask you at any time, hey, are you struggling with this right now? And you're going to be honest with me.
100%.
I have access to all of your stuff, every password.
Yeah, all of it.
I have access to everything. And
I put her, when the thumbprints were on the phone, I'd put her thumbprint in there. Now that we're doing face rec, like, her face is on my phone, my face is on her phone. Like,
and so I know that
anything.
I have full access, and I can't get hurt if I ask him and he's honest with me.
You can get hurt as a natural.
Sure, I can, but I'm not going to stay offended at you. That's not fair to you.
You're just not going to use it
as ammo.
Or shame me for it.
Yeah. Again, we're here with grace, guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say things as absolutes, and I mean them as sort of suits.
I think one of the things that we did when we were dating, and I remember having this conversation with you about just like what the struggle is like, because a lot of times, let's just be real. Like I know a lot of women, especially nowadays, and the numbers have grown exponentially. But a lot of women deal with porn, but a lot of women don't.
Yeah.
Like they just don't deal with that issue, and so they don't understand it. And especially in those situations, or if like if they've had like a brother, a father, an old, husband or boyfriend or whatever who dealt with it, and just, there's trauma related to all that stuff too. Yeah. But a lot of times people a lot of women just don't understand the struggle.
Yeah.
They think of it as, oh, he struggles with porn. He's a pervert. He's he's that.
As someone who's never dealt with it, it's just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's icky.
You think it's like
you had boyfriends try to like make you watch it with them in the past, and like you were always just like,
I was like, oh God, this is 2 seconds in. Oh God, no, I will not be watching this. But also, I didn't hold that against you.
Never held it against me. And
of course, there are always lapses where like I do allow those thoughts to come. Like I have had those thoughts come in, and I haven't swatted them away. Right.
But I think in me sharing like the struggle and kind of, and you being willing to be open to understanding where the struggle is coming from, that it's not a personal attack. That I remember there was even one time, I'm just going to be frank here, like me and Brooke, we had just gotten done doing the deed, like, and I had a great time, y'all. She took care of me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, okay, I'm just like, it was a great time, right? It was a good little sesh. And so we get done. I just like, moments later, I'm looking at our wall and I see like this old like cobweb, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta go clean that up. And so as I'm cleaning the little cobweb off the wall, an old like a scene that I had watched at one point, just like immediately just popped in my head. A completely different woman, completely different, circumstance of this scene, of this video that I'd watched. Moments after me and my wife had a very successful session. It wasn't like I was, sexually frustrated or deprived or didn't get mine. Like, no. My wife and I had a great time. We were intimate together. It was beautiful. And then it's just so like the enemy to just come in and just, and it's something that like I'm not asking for it. I'm not asking to, for an opportunity to go mess up. It's an addictive thing, and you have to, they're literally neural pathways that get built within our brains over years and years and years of the struggle. And you have to rewire your mind. You can literally, by training your mind to get over those things that trigger you, getting outside of the moments that you struggle. You usually usually fall to this issue when this and this are happening, or when you're by yourself, or this, like, get out of those situations and do that long enough. You can literally rewire your neural pathways and relearn things. But more than that, guys, like more than the practical tools of, setting up boundaries and getting accountability partners and getting people around you to support you.
Those are all good things.
You need those things. And I will say that you do need those things. Reading books like on your own and trying to get as much, practical tools and tips to help you in the struggle. More than any of that, dude, you need to get in the Word. You need to get alone with the Lord and allow Him to wipe the slate clean, even if it's a weekly thing. Lord, like I don't know that I'm ever going to stop being tempted.
Oh yeah.
As a man who has dealt with this issue for as long as I've dealt with it, I don't know that I'll ever stop being tempted. Can I stop being tempted? Yeah, the Lord can totally do that. But I think more than the Lord wanting to take away your temptation, the Lord wants you to walk in your identity and wants to remind you of who you are and remind you that he is your grace. He is your strength to help defeat this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be traumas, like just on a practical side, there might be traumas. I've got best friends in my life that their porn struggle came because of traumas that happened to them.
Yeah.
And they never even realized it until it came to the point where their world was crumbling around them because of the issue. And they went to go seek professional help. And then they realized, oh, shoot, when I was a kid, this happened. When I was a kid, blah, 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 like this, and that happened. And that's where all the root of a lot of this stuff is, right? Now, nothing really ever happened to me that, like, there's really no trauma behind there per se, but
it doesn't have to.
Exactly. But there's so many different reasons why people might struggle with the issue. But I think having a spouse, a partner, a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, like, who's going to be a safe place for you to come to. So I don't have to worry about feeling shamed, but I can come to her in...
Probably not girlfriend, boyfriend.
No, well, I'm just saying, like, when we were dating...
You didn't honest. You didn't confide in me.
No, I didn't confide in you.
You should be doing that.
No, but I came to you and I was honest with you. I was honest with you about the issue.
Yeah.
And then we started getting engaged, and I was able to start like opening it more up to you and about
I think
that
it's
stuff.
Like, okay, so something I want to kind of move into now is how we've walked kind of in victory in. Hold on, I'm blind. How to walk in victory over it together.
You can turn your brightness up, love, if you want to.
I can't see anything that far.
Yeah,
away.
That was funny.
Well, I did see it once it got closer to my face. So that's the only way. If you're listening, I had to put it very close to my face. So, some practical steps, or maybe not, like maybe they don't have to be practical steps of how we've kind of walked in victory. Do you want me to start it off?
Yeah, please.
So for me, I don't even know if I finished talking about this a few minutes ago.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Rabbit trails.
It's okay. It's okay. This, like I said, this is how, like, if you were having dinner with us, these are how our conversations would go. Yeah. So number one for me is pray for your spouse. I don't care how hurt you are, how mad you are, how right you feel, even how right you possibly are. Like, you need to pray for your spouse. And it took for me, I remember there was, this was what I was getting into a while ago. I remember there was a time where you kind of opened up to me about it. I asked you and you were honest. And I remember I started crying and you were like, Brooke, I'm so sorry. Like, you felt so guilty. And I remember I was crying because I felt like, man, I should have been, not like, it wasn't like a bad guilt, but it was like, when was the last time I prayed for him in this area? Months. And I felt like, man, as his wife, and I know that's something he struggles with, that should be one of the first things I pray for. Like, if I have family members who don't know the Lord, I'm praying for them every day. I'm begging for God to save them. Why not something so much more personal that includes me, right? And so praying for your spouse, number one. Number two, I would definitely say, like, setting up those boundaries, being very honest, like having open communication with your spouse, not being afraid. Like, if you as a wife, you sometimes feel it, you know what I mean? And not being afraid of the answer and trying not to react, rather respond, and if they do it for the 20th time and they say, yeah, I'm dealing with it again, you not being like, well, I've told you a million times, and how are you not changing? And you want to be that way, right? Like, you want to be frustrated. But as Christians, like, you and I should look like Jesus and the church, right? The bride and Jesus. Right. And when for me, it really took a mindset shift for me to look at it and say, okay, right now I'm stinking hurt. I feel not enough. I feel frustrated that he's not stopping. I feel frustrated because this is not something I'm bringing into our marriage. Sure. I'm staying pure. I'm frustrated. I'm hurt. And I remember just having to shift my mind and say, okay, Lord, how do you view this situation? Because it's clearly not how I'm viewing it. How do you view Nate? How do you view the situation? And how can I help him? Because ultimately, if I help him, it's going to be a win-win for both of us. And just trying to see it through the Lord's eyes rather than through my lens of pain.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, you can keep going. I'm going to look something up real quick.
So for me, those are probably like the main things that I as a wife have done. And also just like, I've tried really hard not to ever talk bad about you and that struggle to anyone.
Sure.
I never even talked about it until recently, until you started opening up more about it. I didn't tell a soul because that's not, for me, I felt like that's not mine to tell. Doesn't matter how much, maybe somebody who's outside of our people who didn't know you, maybe I would talk to a professional, but
Sure.
like I would never talk to my friends about a struggle that you're dealing with because I feel like that's not honoring of you so much. Now we talk about it because you're okay with it, but before when you were really dealing with it, I wasn't going to go telling people about your struggle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I would be heartbroken if you did that about me.
Sure.
Especially something so personal.
Yeah.
And it's hard if you're seeking counsel, that's different from somebody who's maybe a leader or a mentor. That's fine. But just going and talking bad about your spouse is never healthy.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect, but that's something I tried really hard to do, especially with the porn.
Yeah.
Because that's not my story to tell.
Well, I appreciate that.
You know what I mean?
I've always appreciated that you've been a safe place for me to confide in, and a safe place for me to be honest with, with that issue and let you know when I am having seasons where it's like it's a struggle, and in other seasons it's not so much a struggle.
Yeah.
And I've found victory in allowing. First of all, going on a conscious walk with the Lord, and allowing Him to remind me of who I am, number one, as a son.
Yeah.
And that I'm clothed with His righteousness, which, when I think about that literally means that God, the Father, views me as righteous as Jesus is, and that He loves me as much as Jesus, as he loves Jesus, which blows my mind. And then it reminds me that He's given me grace, which we a lot of times don't understand grace. A lot of times we think grace is like a mercy thing, like a forgiveness thing, like, oh Lord, just have mercy on me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Give me grace. Like the scripture verse says, like, where sin abounds, grace abounds much more. We take that as a forgiveness thing or a mercy thing. Grace is primarily power that He gives us. He empowers us with grace.
Yeah.
His power, His strength, I can literally turn to Him and say, Lord, I am struggling with this. And He reminds me, I've given you grace over it. You already have the power. You already have the empowering as a son to walk that out.
Yeah.
And He reminds me. He doesn't just remove it from me. He reminds me of who I am. And then along with that, I had a thought, and it was just like how, like, different ways that I've how He's kind of like helped me overcome it. I lost that train of thought, so maybe I can save it for another time. But allowing Him to change my desires.
Yeah. Me.
I've seen,
To me being your desire, your only
no,
desire.
girl, you've always been my desire. And you know that, and you know that the issue has nothing to do with
your
my desire
attraction
towards
to
you,
me.
not at all. And that's something that's hard for a lot of
Women.
marriages in general to just understand. That is nothing to do with your spouse or their attraction. You can have a fantastic sex life, and it be equally gratifying for both parties, and still deal with the issue, because the issue is not. It has zero to do with your marriage. It has everything to do with
really
the desires that you have within yourself. The 1 Timothy says, let me pull it up. Not 1 Timothy. James 1:14 said, temptation comes from your own desires, which entice us and drag us away. Your temptations are your temptations because you desire those things. So Lord, help me not desire them anymore.
It's good.
And I made my prayer, Lord, make your desires my desires. Like, I want to have your heart. I want to have, I want to look like Jesus as much as I can. I want to love like Jesus. I want people who don't know him to see him in me,
Yeah.
you know, and be like, dude, I might have all these issues with Christians and the church and blah, 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 but you always been, you know, a bright example for me or whatever. And I have had, you know, handfuls of people say that to me, not as a boastful thing whatsoever. I'm just saying that, like, that process of asking the Lord to reflect him and making that a genuine desire. Lord, I want my desires to not be that anymore. I want my desires to be you. I want to desire you. I want to desire your heart. I want to desire looking like Jesus. Y'all, if you're a Christian, your prime desire needs to be looking like Jesus.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself of that every day, because looking like Jesus isn't just in one area. It's also looking like Jesus in your frustrations, looking like Jesus in the things that annoy you. And you know that I deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I get triggered a lot by little things that annoy me. And every day I have to ask the Lord, I want to look like you. I don't want to look like flesh Nathan.
Yeah.
I want to look like the spirit man that, you know, dwells within me, the Holy Spirit that dwells within me. I want to, the new creation that you see in me, Lord, that's who I want to look like. That's who I want to live as, you know, as that Nathan. And so, those are just kind of some practical, you know, tips that practical and spiritual tips that I've implemented in my life, as well as obviously surrounding myself with some of the best guys in the world who challenge me, who sharpen me, who, you know, I help to sharpen them as well. Right. Yeah. And it's like people that I know who have overcome the issue or who are on that same journey, you know, and we help each other.
And aren't going to be shy about asking hard
100%.
questions. And
who I can be honest with.
Yep.
I've been really, really honest about some stupid things that I've done, or just dumb decisions that I've done, you know, and I've had people that I can go to and talk to and have them, you know, call me higher, you know. But there was one last thing before we break. Jeremy Riddle recently shared a post, and it's a really practical thing, but it kind of sets a biblical precedent for setting boundaries, because they're not the end all fix all, right? The end all be all, but you need boundaries.
Yeah.
And he posted Hebrew 12:12, and it says, "So then, strengthen hands that are weak and knees that tremble. Cut smooth, straight paths for your feet, so that the leg which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather healed." And so it's talking about smoothing out the road that you're on for your lame leg. All the bumpiness, all the things that would normally trip you up or cause you to fall, cause you to, you know, get that leg out of joint, like smooth that road out. Do the work to smooth the road out for your weak area.
Yeah.
Make that struggle as easy to say no to as possible.
That's right. That's good.
You know, and so there's biblical precedent for that. It's not just self-help, you know, mumbo jumbo. Like,
this is biblical.
Yes. And so anyway, that's it, man. Anything else you want to say?
Please have grace for me, guys, and everything that I said. That's it.
No shame on anyone, man. No shame on it. Everyone's got their different journey through how they've dealt with this issue in their relationship, and, you know, you do what you feel like you have to do in those moments. But I think our story, we're just trying to help people who are in it right now. And how do I look more like Jesus through the whole thing? I think
that's if you take anything away from this, man, woman, struggle, don't struggle, your spouse struggles, how do I look like Jesus in this situation? Our highest call as Christians is to look like him. Look like him. Yeah. Love like him. Yep. You know, no matter how many times the person that you love falls, you know. And again, we're not talking about major, you know, major things. And that's like, what, is that not major? Like, yeah, porn's major, but we're not talking about abusive relationships. We're not talking about someone going off and actually cheating, you know, emotional, you know, an emotional affair, a physical affair. Like, that stuff, you should probably go talk to someone. Go get some counsel. Get some counsel. Maybe, you know. This too, but definitely that. Yes, definitely you need counseling, 100%, you know, especially if it gets to that point where
or you can't do it on your own anymore, right? But anyway, no shame.
Jesus. That's all
Look
we're
like
trying
Jesus.
to say.
Well, I appreciate you guys hanging in here with us for this one. I know it was a little bit heavy, and just for anyone out there that is struggling with it, just know that we're a safe place for you to come and reach out to and talk to us, and we're not a place of judgment. We're not a place of, no, you're doing it wrong. Like, no, we've gone through it. We've seen the way that the Lord can really strengthen you in that issue. So anyway, love y'all. Sorry we're a little over that hour mark, but good stuff. We'll see y'all on the next one.